Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? All right, let's try it one more time with feeling. Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? Oh, I love it. Thank you very, very much for coming by. My name is Andy Sachs. This training is called Booth Brush Up, how to stand out, sell more, and have fun on your trade show floor. And we're going to spend just about 40 minutes together, a very short block of time, so that my goal here is to share information with you, first of all, that you enjoy the experience, and second, that you pick up at least 1, 2, 3 things you can try on the show floor to make your time here more effective. How does that sound? All right. Let's go ahead and dive in. First, I want to take about 30 seconds just to tell you a little background so you know where I'm coming from. I run a company called Spark Presentations. We've been in the trade show industry almost 20 years, and our goal is to help the booths that we work with get the best possible results for their investment on the show floor. And we do that mainly through providing talent and training. So I work as a booth presenter. I have folks who also work as booth presenters for me. You know, the folks who show up with the little mini theater and the little PowerPoint deck who give those presentations. I do that. My team does that. We have booth assistants and product specialists and crowd gatherers, and we also do trainings like this one. And that's actually where Home Depot found me. I was Home Depot's booth presenter for IECCon 2015 and 2016, the Electrical Contractor Show. And I did a version of this training at IECCon 2015, and they liked it, so they asked me if I would bring it here. Now that I'm out of the way, let's talk about you. And I want to just get right to the crux of the training. What makes the difference at your booth? In other words, what matters most in creating a successful trade show interaction? And I'll give you a scenario and give you some options to choose from. Let's say that the show has just started. You're at your booth. You have one of the Home Depot managers come over. They haven't experienced at your booth. Maybe it's a few seconds, a few minutes, maybe it's longer. At some point, you're going to create a moment of truth for them. You'll ask them, can I scan your badge? Would you like a demo? Would you like a copy of the product? Would you like a prize? Would you come back? Would you represent our product in your stores, right? You'll have that moment of truth. And in that moment of truth, the Home Depot manager will have to think about this and decide whether they want to say yes or no. Do I want to stay and learn more? Do I want to build a relationship with this person, with the company? Do I like the product enough to represent it? Do I even want to bother taking their giveaway and putting it in my bag and moving on? So in that moment of truth, where that manager has to decide yes or no, what is the single biggest factor in that decision? And I'll give you some options to choose from, okay? Is it your company name and reputation? Is that the biggest thing they consider when they're deciding yes or no in the moment of truth? Is it your booth layout, the physical structure of the booth, the carpeting, the design, the swag that you're giving out, the flyers that you have, anything like that? Is it the actual products you're talking about? Or is it their personal interaction with you and how they got along with you? So let's get a show of hands for this. Who thinks it's the company name and reputation? Raise your hand. No one. Okay, great. Who thinks it's the booth design, the physical structure of the booth? That's most important. Raise your hand. No one at all. Okay. Who thinks it's your products, the things you're actually offering that make the biggest difference in whether somebody wants to continue a relationship with you? Raise your hand. Good. A few of you. Excellent. Who thinks it's your exchange, their personal interactions with you as a human being? Okay. As we say in Boston, you're wicked smart. Now, you've all got the right idea. And by the way, all of those things are important, and all of them play a factor in that moment of truth, right? Company name and reputation, what they know about you already, previous experience, the booth design, the swag you're giving away, the actual product that you're there to talk about. But industry research shows that on average, the single most important part of your booth, the thing that on average is the single biggest influence of whether the relationship you're trying to build actually continues or dies on the vine, is you. You make or break your booth success more than any other factor in your booth on average. And I really want to drive this point home because I want you to know how central you are to your booth success. Because it's easy to think of yourself almost like a museum guard, right? You've built this gorgeous booth, you've got your giveaways, you've got your products, your signage, your carpeting, everything's there. And it's easy to think of yourself like your role is just to fade into the background, right? And whenever somebody comes by, you say, well, the products are over there and the giveaways are over there, and please don't touch anything and no flash photography, and I'll be over here if you need me. In fact, you are not there to support your booth. Your booth is there to support you, to give you all the tools you need to have a successful relationship with that prospect in that moment. but you are the star of the show. Is that scary a little bit? You make or break the experience. So knowing that, how do we make the most of you? How do we make sure that the most important component of your booth is maximized to make the biggest impact, rather, in the moment? Well, here's the ending. I'm going to give it away right now. You ready? That's Larry, by the way, one of my staffers. Show the Home Depot managers you're in it for their customers. Show the Home Depot managers at every moment of that interaction that you are in it for their customers. Now, this sounds pretty basic, I know, and I often get the hairy eyeball when I put this slide up, and people say, well, duh, of course, that's what we're doing here. We get it. But then I talk to the attendees, and they say, yeah, we didn't feel like that at all. Nobody really seemed to want to talk to us. Nobody could really answer our questions. It was very awkward for us. We left the show floor not feeling fully engaged with any of the exhibitors, rather. So there's a disconnect there somewhere. So the question isn't, are you interested in helping the managers? I know you are. But are you showing them at every moment? Are you allowing them to experience that interest, to feel it, to believe it, so that when that moment of truth comes, they say, yes, of course, I want to continue a relationship with this person. So this training is about how to do that. Here's a quick agenda. In the next 33 minutes, we will cover these 3 topics. First, attracting, how to make sure that of all the things that a manager could do at a given moment, they choose your booth as their top contender, and they come over to talk to you. The next one is the qualifying phase. Once they do come over to talk to you, what are great questions that you can ask to start a conversation, establish trust, find out their pain point, and build a little rapport. And then the next step is the demonstrating phase. How do you make sure when you finally get to talk about your product that you're presenting it in a way that is engaging, interesting, useful, and memorable to them, and that feels to them like it was built just for them and their experience? And then we'll wrap up. So let's dive right into phase 1, the attracting phase. Let's imagine the show has just started. You see Home Depot managers everywhere, right? They're just spread out all over the show floor. You're the plumbing guys, right? And girls. All right, so they're walking through the plumbing department, and you see them 10 feet away, 20, 50 feet away, but nobody's quite coming over to you yet. What can you do in your booth to make yourself look like the most attractive, appealing thing in their world at that moment, so that of all the things they could do, they choose you? And think about that. There are quite a number of things, right? They can go to any booth in the plumbing department, or any booth in the electrical department, or any booth in gardening, or anywhere else on this show floor, which, by the way, is gigantic. Or they can leave the show floor altogether and go somewhere else in Mandalay Bay. They can go back to their room or to the casino floor, or they can sit and check their email on their phone or call home or do any one of a million other things. How do you make sure that of all the things they can do at that moment, they see you as the most appealing option? Well, let's take a look at some of them. So here's your question and rephrased. How should you say, come on in? In other words, these are the basics. Where can you position yourself in the booth? How can you look appealing so that when they glance over at you, they see something that makes them want to come over and investigate it? For example, if you want to say, in other words, if you want to communicate the idea without speaking the words, if you want to say, hey, I'm here to help attendees, where should you stand in the booth? Yell it out if you know it. Where should you stand? Up front? Is that what I'm hearing? Good. Up front's an excellent answer. I assume you mean like right on the edge of the booth. So if this is the booth edge, you'd want to stand just behind it, just on it, or just over it, right? Why does that make a big deal? Kenneth, what if I just move back, let's say that's about 3 feet? Why is this bad? It's only 3 feet different. Sorry? More distance, right, between you and the attendee. And that communicates a message to them, right? More distance means less interest. And they pick up on that because we're all really good at seeing those subtle signals. How about this next one? If you wanted to communicate the idea, hey, you won't get ganged up on, should you be standing by yourself or in a group talking with your colleagues, your coworkers? Raise your hand if you think you should be by yourself. Raise your hand if you think you should be in a group. So you all know this already. Why should you be by yourself? What's the threat to an attendee of you being in a booth? Why do they care? Shout it out if you know it. Sorry? Ooh, they don't want, yeah. So they see you talking to other people, and they see those other people as potential threats to your conversation, right, Tony? And they say, well, if I talk to that person, they may get interrupted by the person they were talking to, and that ruins my conversation. Listen to how far forward they're projecting in that moment into what might happen, and then deciding they don't want to take the risk. Any other reason? What else might they worry about? They're not as approachable. It seems intimidating, right? It's like the high school lunchroom. Can't go to that table. There's a group already over there laughing and having fun with each other. I'm certainly not getting in the way of that. So these are behaviors, again, that are just totally innocuous, totally random, totally benign in any other walk of life. But on a trade show floor, in a booth, everything you do, even these little subtle moments, communicate messages that may turn off the very people you came here to attract. How about this one? If you want to say, you'll have my full attention, you want to communicate that idea, should you be holding anything in your hands, like a phone or a tablet? Raise your hand if yes. Raise your hand if no. Why no? So you're not distracted, right? Even holding is a potential distraction, right? Tony, if you're talking to me and I'm holding the phone, what are you focused on? The phone, right? Because you're waiting for the thing to go off, and you know I'll have a moment of truth where I'll look at the phone as it's ringing, and then I'll have to decide if I like that person or you better. So even if the phone isn't being actively used, it can be a distraction to the person who you want to talk to. So in your pocket, or better yet, out of the booth entirely. All right, looks like we jumped around a bit. So let's go back where we were. So here's the next question. What if you want to communicate the idea, I'm well rested and energized? Should you be eating or drinking anything? How about coffee? How about soda? How about a hot dog? Why not? Regular food and drink, right? We have them every day or often. Why not? What's wrong with them on a trade show floor? Distraction, that's part of it, right? How awkward does it feel? Imagine you were welcoming somebody into your house and you were standing there with coffee and a hot dog, right? Hey, get comfortable. I'm just going to eat and drink without you and not offer you anything, right? Nice, right? Good hospitality. But the other thing that I see is I'm making a judgment about you based on what you're drinking. So if you're drinking coffee, what do you think I'm thinking about you? You need energy, right? That's why people drink coffee. Now, that may not be the reason, but that's my assumption. If you need energy, that means you're not at your best. If you're not at your best, and I only have a limited amount of time on the show floor and a lot of booths to see, why would I waste any of it with you? You're not 100%. And just like that, before I even come over, the interaction's over. It'll never happen. Now, the exceptions to those two, holding anything or eating and drinking, is if you have items that are available to the attendee. Maybe you're giving away coffee or water or hot dogs, or maybe you're giving away swag and you hold, a little giveaway item in your hand. If it's something that's available to the attendee, you want to use it as a draw, go for it. Otherwise, just get it away from your person altogether. What if you want to say, I'm eager to talk with you? What expression should you wear? This is the easiest question of the training. Smile. Show me your smile. Fantastic. You nailed the smile. Well done. So I know you all know how to do it. Keep that smile on all day. And next up, what if you want to say, I want you to get to know me? Where should you put your badge? Right there. Why do you say that? It's music to my ears. I can't see your name because your badge is flipped around. Otherwise, I would call you by your name. Which is the problem, right? I'm amazed, by the way, like these badges and these lanyards, this is the staple of the trade show industry. And if I were to put this on Twitter, I would hashtag it product fail. Because it has one job, and the job is to show your name. And most of the time, like Annette's was, it's flipped over, and it's not her fault. You just don't even notice it, right? So you really want people to know your name because you want to build a relationship with them. What happens when they can't see your badge? Don't know your name. So, first of all, make sure it's up front. If you can, tie a knot in the back, which will pull it up a little higher, bring it closer to your face, and make it less likely to flip over. And the best possible option, if you can swing it, is to put either that badge or a separate name tag on your right shoulder, and Annette knows why. Because when I go to meet her, I say, hey, Annette, I'm Andy. Nice to meet you. Annette's line of sight goes right to my right shoulder, and my line of sight goes right to her right shoulder, and you want to put your name where people are going to look. Now, as Annette talks to me, my name is right here, right in her field of vision. So she keeps seeing name, face, name, face. Why does that matter? Because a week from now, I'm going to call Annette, say, hey, it was great meeting you at the show. I'm Andy Sachs. Remember me? And if she hasn't seen my name because my badge was flipped over, she says, no, sorry, I don't. And if I put it right here, and it was the most memorable name at the show, she says, yeah, actually, I do remember meeting you, and we're off and running. All right, so I'm going to test your wisdom on this now, because you all know these things. I'm going to put up a little test called What's My Subtext? I'm going to show you a handful of photos of anonymous trade show staffers misbehaving. These are people I've just seen at shows over the years doing the things we discussed wrong, and I want you to tell me how they're screwing up. Sounds good? All right, you ready? Here we go. The exhibitor is the guy on the right. How's he doing? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you say? Everybody says thumbs down. Wow, that was fast. Okay. Why do you say thumbs down? Shout it out. He's what? He's distracted. Okay. So you picked up on that. All right, his attention is not on the people walking by. All right, what else? He's behind the table. There's a physical barrier between him and the people he came to meet. What else? Sorry? Can't see his name. Hidden below the barrier. It's a double foul. What else? Facial expression. What is his facial expression? He looks pissed off. He does look pissed off. That's amazing. What's your name, sir? Jeff, you went, there it is. Jeff went one step farther than the rest of you. The rest of you made visual observations, right? He's standing over here, he's looking down, all true. Jeff went one step farther and guessed his state of mind. He can only see half his face, but Jeff feels like he knows this guy's mood. Would you bother to stop and talk to somebody who looks pissed off? I wouldn't. Now, this company, I won't say who it is, this is a medical show in Boston. This company makes 7-figure sales. So let's say the guy on the left is worth 7 figures, right by. Lady back there, worth 7 figures, right by. By the way, I took all these photos with my phone, so I was standing right here and never got noticed. No good. How about this guy? What? He's just standing there on his phone. We all do that a billion times a day, right? What's wrong with this? Distracted, I heard tired. Again, speaking to his state of mind. What else? His back is what? He's at the back of the display instead of towards the front. What I love about this, and first of all, I took this at a show in San Francisco where I was actually standing in my booth. So the vantage point you see is from my booth across the aisle. I was giving booth presentations for 4 days, and I swear to God, this is all he did for 4 days. Sit there and stare at his phone. What I love about this is the juxtaposition between his message and his company's message. Do you know how much money and people and time it cost to get those words on that wall? The number of people that marketing had to do it, and they had to come up with it and get it reviewed and approved, and then they had to send it to a designer who built the lettering and a printer who printed the lettering, and then another shipping company brought it to the venue, and then another company brought it to the booth, and then another company set it up. Do you know how much money it cost to get those letters on that wall? And he killed it all, just like that, by standing underneath it and looking at his phone. And you also proved the point that if an attendee sees 2 conflicting messages in the same booth, they will always believe that the human being's message is the true message. Nobody believes that because that conflicts with it, and that's the real thing, right? Would you talk to this guy? Okay, let's move on. How about this guy? This is what you look like when you stand with your back to the aisle, right? How comfortable would you feel going and tapping this guy on the shoulder and saying, excuse me, I know you're on your phone and clearly don't want to talk to anybody, even though you're at a trade show booth, but could I bother you to learn about your products? Not a good start. How about these guys? This is what you look like when you eat at the booth. What's a better way to handle this? Any way than this, yes. I love this. One guy started eating, and the other guy said, oh, can we eat lunch now? And he went and got his food and also came back to the booth and started eating. Somebody once in a training pointed out to me that bottle of Sprite with the cap off right on the edge of the table waiting to be knocked over. And of all the foods you could eat, hot dogs, really? Would you stop and talk to these guys? What's a better way to do this? Take turns. I'll go get lunch, eat away from the booth. You wait, I'll come back. You go get lunch, eat away from the booth. Right. All right, how about these guys? Again, love the juxtaposition between the signage and the physical activity. We are your global business partner. But if you want to actually do business with us, come back another time. We're not even here. Sorry? Oh, yes. I tried to hide the company name in each one of these, so just to illustrate the point. But they will, when they come back later on, after they've eaten lunch, connect you to global markets. You should know that. All right. Now, I wanted to show you that there was one example at one show In whole 20 years of one guy doing this right, this is my favorite guy. He is one of maybe 2 or 3 examples I've seen in all these years of somebody who impressed me. And it's a little unfair because when I came on him, he was actually in a different pose. He had his hand in his pocket. He was kind of whistling to himself. He was going back and forth on his heels. He was looking up and down the aisle. And because he was paying attention, he saw me coming. And we talked. And then I asked him to pose. And I got this. It wasn't quite as good as the original, but you get the idea. Would you be willing to talk to him? Yeah, me too. Not that hard. Standing at the edge of the booth, looking forward, smiling, completely disarmed posture. You might or might not need what he offers, but chances are you wouldn't be intimidated to talk to him, right? You wouldn't be put off. All right, so with that in mind, let's jump to part 2, which is qualifying. Let's imagine now you've got that person in your booth, the manager who you've been trying to attract without words, just based on facial expression and posture and placement in the booth and all that. You've gotten them over. Now you can actually start the interaction. How do you do it? What do you say? How do you kick off a conversation at a trade show floor? In my experience, this tends to be the most awkward moment for exhibitors. Maybe you've had some awkwardness around it too. So what I want to give you is a list of 10 questions that through my trial and error and my colleagues' trial and error, we found work pretty well in this environment. If you'd like, you can add your own to the mix. You can try a few and see what works for you. So the first 4 are in a group called the connection questions. And these are the ones you might ask right off the bat. They're not threatening, they're not probing. The idea here is really to just get the process flowing, get a conversation going, start to establish a rapport. For example, where'd you get that? People hold stuff that's interesting all the time at trade shows, right? Maybe they got a hat at another booth or a prize or something in the bag or something flashing on their shirt, right? And all you have to do is point to it and say where you'd get that, right? Now, to you, it sounds like maybe a pretty innocuous question, but what you've done in a very subtle way is right off the bat, flip the conversation on its head because they expect you to start talking about you. And the subtext is, nope, we'll get to me later. Right now, I want to learn about you. And right off the bat, they're talking about themselves. And most people love talking about themselves, so that works out well. How about this one? What can I help you find? This is a better variation of what I think is the worst question in retail. The question I always hear in retail is, can I help you? Jeremy, if I said, can I help you? Your answer is, and I'm done. Yeah, Jeremy says no, and there's nowhere for me to go. What can I help you find is an open version of that closed question, and the subtext is, ask me anything. Maybe it's something in my booth, maybe it's something in the department, maybe you're looking for the bathroom, maybe you want the exit to the show floor so you can go back to the casino, whatever it is, I'm here to serve, right? Nice, open, gentle question that encourages an answer. Next up. What have you enjoyed most in this show in this city? Again, wide open question, nice and light, just gets them talking, right? Now, these questions are also somewhat, not deceptive, but they're more useful than they may seem because if you ask someone, what have you enjoyed in the city, and they tell you about going to see a show last night and getting drunk and waking up 10 minutes ago and losing a bunch of money on the tables, does this seem like somebody who's fully engaged in the show? No. If they tell you about seeing a great keynote speaker that Home Depot provided and a great product demo in the electrical department and that they are so excited to walk around and see all these plumbing exhibitors, does that tell you this is someone who came to play? Yeah, maybe a little more, right? How about this one? How'd you get started in this job or industry? Raise your hand if you were doing today what you thought you'd be doing when you were 6 years old. Yeah, me neither. And same for the attendees. I saw you in the back, and I think you're lying. The attendees aren't either, which means somewhere along the line, their lives took a turn they didn't expect, right? Well, I went to school for this, and then I had an internship over here, and I got a job over here, and then I moved to this city, and then I met this person who got me connected over here, and then I ended up over here. Let people tell you their life stories. Ask this question and just sit back and listen. You don't have to do anything. They will tell you not just the story, but so much information is embedded in these stories, right? Personal history, geographic locations, people they know, knowledge bases, attention spans, interest levels. All of this can be fed into your demo, can tell you about how you can serve them in the demo part of the conversation. Any others that you like to use that you want to add to the mix? Okay, let's jump ahead to the part 2. Let's say you've asked 1 or 2 connection questions. Now it's time to start collecting information more in depth because now you have rapport. Tell me about your store. Again, nice wide open question. What do you like about it? What do your customers like? What are your challenges in the store? Just let me learn about you. Great opportunity. How do you handle this customer need today, right? Let them tell you about what goes wrong today and the pain points, and we'll come back to that during the demo phase so you can figure out how to be the hero and save them from that pain point. Next up, describe your customer's perfect product. Sometimes people don't really know what they want. Sometimes you have attendees who are a little tongue-tied. You could just say, you know what, let's throw all the terminology away. Just tell me, if you could build a product from scratch that your customers would love, what would it look like? And consider this a moment for market research and listen very carefully, because if they tell you 5 things, 5 features they want and a given price point and a certain type of packaging and a certain grip on it, all you have to do is listen and find the spots where your product meets their expectations and what they're building in their head, and then talk about those communal points. Next up, what would you change about your current product if you could? This is a good one for somebody who says, I already recommend this other company's products. I like them, the customers like them. And you think, well, that's it. There's nowhere to go in the conversation, right? Here's a question, follow-up question you can ask. Great, I'm really happy that you have something that works for you. Tell me, I'm just curious, what would you change about that product if you could? Chances are they don't love it 100%. They may love it 80 or 90%. And you're asking about the other 10 or 20%. That's a great opportunity for you for market research to talk to the people on the floor who live and breathe these products and who know firsthand what the customers want and don't want. You can also ask them what they like about those products and learn about why they're attracted to them, and that's also great market research, wouldn't you say? Don't get many opportunities to pick that up from one-on-one conversations, do you? Also a very good use for trade show time. And any questions you want to add to the mix in this category that you use? Okay, I'm going to bring you right to the magic moment. This is my favorite part of the qualifying phase. It's called the confirmation question. This is the part nobody does, and attendees love it, okay? This is the part where you show them that not only did you ask the question, but you listened to the answer, you heard the answer, you understood the answer, and you were able to rearrange the parts of the answer and feed that answer back to them in a format not even they had thought of. You ready? It looks something like this. Let's see if I've got this. You're looking for a plumbing product that has this feature, and this feature to help your customer with this task so that they can enjoy this benefit. Do I have that right? Tony, let me see if I've got this right. You're looking for a plumbing product that does this and this and this so that your customers can be helped with their toilet installation so that they can do it quickly and get on with other projects in their home renovation. Do I have that right? Absolutely. All right. Yes. Now, Tony's playing coy with me, I know, but here's what actually happened in that momentary exchange. I, as the talker, only heard my voice and the general sound of the show floor. Tony heard angels singing, because somebody at a trade show booth listened to him. And you've all been attendees, right? So you know how rarely that actually happens. Chances are 70, 80% of your relationship is cemented in that moment, and the rest of it is just details. Now, here's how to handle somebody who walks by and doesn't show any interest in stopping at your booth at all. And I learned this when I was working for Intel at the Consumer Electronics Show. We had a ginormous booth, tons of people walking through on their way somewhere else. And we started asking this question on day 2. We call it, just to continue the C theme, the for your consideration question. You ready? Would you come back to see this? Tony blows by. I say, hey, Tony, I can see you're busy. Would you come back later? We're doing a prize giveaway at 4:30. Would you come back for that? Tony, back me up. Okay, Tony says, yes, absolutely. That's what I was looking for. You'd be amazed how many people who are blowing by your booth, or you think you don't even want to try to interrupt them, or they're talking with other people and they can't be saved. You'd be surprised how many of those folks, if you dangle something that seems appealing to them, they will either stop in their tracks and decide that that's more appealing than whatever they were going to do anyway, or they actually will come back later. So out of every 10 people you ask this question, you may get 3 or 4 or 5 who become interactions and become relationships so you thought you couldn't save. Any questions, challenges, additions to this list? Okay, we're right on time. We got about 10 minutes left. We're going to jump into demonstrating. Now, so your goal here is to say, okay, you've finally done that all your work to the point where now you can actually have a conversation about your products. Yay! Congratulations. This is the fun part. So now, let's assume that you have a very, very limited time frame, 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. How do you walk through a product demo during that time frame that you never know when it's going to end in a way that's memorable to them? So after they've seen 10 or 20 or 50 other product demos on the show floor, that night, at dinner or the way back home on the plane or when they're back in their store a week later, they remember yours. That's pretty challenging, huh? Well, I'm going to give this to you as sort of a loose script. You can use it or not use it as you like. All right, first step is to ask a buy-in question. And what I mean by that is most staffers, when they start a product demo, they just launch right into it. They start talking about the product, but you haven't gotten the attendees permission to start. Maybe they're not interested. Maybe they don't have time. Maybe they're a little annoyed that you didn't ask first. So create for them a moment of decision, very simple, very fast, that just goes like this. Based on what you've told me, I think we have a great option for your customers. Would you like to see it? Lauren, based on what you've told me, I think we have a great option for your customers. Would you like to see it? In that moment, I've transferred the control back to Lauren. Lauren feels like it's her decision now. If she goes along and watches the demo, it's because she wants to, not because I pulled her along, right? And because of that, Lauren is likely to listen more closely, to understand better what I said, to process it, to remember it, and to use it when she goes back to her store. Just that little tweak. Next up is to offer what I call a tie-in, right? So Lauren, my product is called this, and it's designed to help your customers solve this particular plumbing problem. Whatever Lauren tells me is her customer's thorn and their side, that's why we invented the product. Next time when I talk to somebody else, we'll say it's designed to help their problem. Isn't that magical? All right. Next up is to make it stand out. This is where you want to hit your key differentiator. The one thing that makes, or the one thing that you mention that makes you special and more special than the other options they had to consider, right? It's the best fit for your customers because, so if they've spent time telling you that their customers have a particular plumbing problem and that they get so frustrated because the product they use is too expensive, or it's too complicated, or it doesn't solve the problem very well, or creates another problem, or they don't like the grip on the handle, whatever it is, try to find the one thing that stands out about your product that also overlaps with that problem, and that becomes your key differentiator in that conversation, right? I know your customers are frustrated with the handle on the tools they use now. This is a special grip. It's created with a brand new material. It's super comfortable after 10 minutes, 2 hours, however long they use it. So that whole thing, buy-in, tie-in, and stand out, takes about 30 seconds. And I put them all up front for a reason, because you never know how long a trade show interaction is going to last. So if you get cut off after 30 seconds because their phone rings or somebody else comes along that they know and takes them away, or the show ends or whatever, or they just get bored and move along, they've got the basics already. And even if that conversation gets cut off, they walk away with something of use that will make you memorable. If you have time, I encourage you to move on to what I call storytelling. What most people do is what we call the data dump, right? You take 10 or 15 or 20 facts, feeds, and speeds about your product, you put them in a bucket, and you dump them over the prospect's head, and you hope they remember them. Does that tend to work well? Not in my experience either. Instead, tell a story. People love stories. They have characters and plot and drama and resolution and excitement, and that's how our brains are wired to think. So for example, you could pull them back into their own customer scenario and say, let's go back to that scenario you described to me when you have your plumbing customer come in, they come to the plumbing department, they're yelling at you because they're so frustrated because the tool they bought 3 days earlier isn't working and they paid too much for it, and what are you going to do to help them? That's your moment of pure pain, right? So let's go back to that moment, and instead of saying to them, I don't know, that's the best we have to offer, you can ask for a refund, right? Instead, imagine if you pulled out our tool and you told them about this one feature and you saved the day for them and you became their hero. So you're taking the scenario that they painted for you, you're injecting your product or service into it, you're making it the hero, and you're saving their day by extension. You can also do that with a past customer success story, right? Hey, Diane, you know, what you're describing, we had a Home Depot store across the country with a really similar situation about a year ago. Here's the tool that we recommended for them, and I just checked in with them a few weeks ago, and here's how it's gone for them. It's been really successful. Here's how they pitched it. Here's the customer reaction. Do you think that would work for you? Right? Now, the nice thing about the success story is it has the ring of credibility to it. What you're saying is, hey, I know you're still stuck in the pain area, but we have people who've moved beyond that to successful resolutions. They're living a much more enjoyable life than you are right now. They already exist there. I'd like to bring you into that area. All right. So with that in mind, we have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to run you through a quick list of other quick tips you have that can add strength and warmth to your demo, that can basically make your demo more memorable, make you more memorable, and make that person more eager and likely to work with you and represent you in the Home Depot store. First up, be clear. There seems to be an effort in trade shows to use a lot of $10 words to impress attendees with how many big words you know. Try to resist the temptation. Because along with that, there's an assumption that they know all the same words you know, and you'd be amazed at how often that's not true, but people don't want to admit it. So instead, don't use a $10 word if a $1 word will do just fine. If you have words that are really key to understanding what you do, offer to define them or give an example so there's full understanding between you. If they don't understand what you're saying, the demo isn't going very far after that. Be hands-on. If you have a product, and I imagine you all do, right? Physical products that can fit in your hand, instead of showing them like this and saying, here's how it works, put that in their hand. Here you go, Kenneth. All right, I'm going to somehow keep my hands behind my back and resist the temptation. Instead, I'm going to talk you through a demo. So first, Kenneth, just how does that feel in your hand right now? Good? Give me some feedback. It's kind of heavy. Interesting. All right, now press this button or use it this way or turn it this way or hit that knob, right? And I'm going to make Kenneth do all the work because I don't want it to be a passive demo where he's watching me. I want it to be an active demo where he's fully engaged and he's having a visceral experience that'll make it more memorable for him. Next up, be colorful. Lots of stories, right? I was there in the product launch, and the night before we were up until 2 in the morning and we ordered pizza and we asked for hamburger, but they brought pepperoni, and then Jeff threw a shoe out the window. It really doesn't matter what your story is. Just make them feel special. Say something they can't get on the website that rewards them for taking the time to come and talk to you, something nobody else knows. Not embarrassing, because it might go on social media, but something nobody else knows. Give them a prediction. In 10 years, we think everybody will be using this material for their grip on this type of tool, but because you're here talking to me now, your customers get it first. How about conversion? You know, when I joined this company, I really didn't think this approach would work. Honestly, I thought they were crazy. But I've spent 5 years now watching customer reactions, and they absolutely love it. Any story like that makes you more convincing and sort of adds color to the whole demo. Next up, be inquisitive. Ask them lots of questions along the way. How would this help you? And let them sell themselves. What would it take for you to offer this in the store, right? Ask them to figure out what are the steps involved and is there anything else you need to do? What can I clarify for you? In other words, what don't you get? What concerns do you have? Uncover their objections. These are great check-in questions. You can add 1 million of your own, and the goal is to make sure that their doubts don't get set in concrete after they walk away from you. Because they may have a doubt festering in the back of their mind, they're too embarrassed to ask, and if you don't address it in the conversation and it's going to stick with them, it's going to gain traction and it's really hard to dislodge later on. Be inclusive. If you've got other attendees waiting to talk to somebody, bring them on over. Have them join the conversation. Hey, Kenneth, listen, I'm really enjoying talking with you. I see Curtis sort of floating at the edge of the booth. I'd like to invite him in. Would that be okay? All right. Hey, Curtis, come on in. Kenneth and I were just talking about this one particular tool. Why don't you join our conversation? Just like that, I have become twice as efficient as I was before. The exact same number of words, 2 sets of ears. If I can get 3 people in the group, I'm triple as efficient. Imagine if every demo you gave it to 5 people, and you became 5 times as efficient without doing any extra work. Would that be helpful? Okay, that's how you got to think at a trade show. Be resourceful. If you have other staffers who maybe can answer a question, or you like to banter with them, or you think they might be helpful, bring them over, get them engaged in the conversation. Hey, Diane, I'm not sure the answer. Could I bring over my colleague? I think he could help us. Diane says, wow, they really care about me. Look at how hard he's working to find the answer. Be positive. Nothing's bad, no one's wrong, everything's good at a trade show. Resist the temptation to badmouth your competitors. When somebody says to me, well, your competitor is lower priced, or they have more features, or they got better reviews, or customers like them more, or whatever, I always say more or less the same thing, which is so-and-so is a great company, they make a great product. However, based on what you told me from our initial conversation, I think this is a better fit for you, and here's why. Doesn't matter if the other 999 people go with that customer. I think you and I should work together, and here's why, right? Even if it's better for the industry, we're better for you. Really, really hard to argue with that logic. And finally, be honest. If you don't know, you don't know. It's cool. Nobody knows everything. Instead, use it as an opportunity for a follow-up action with that attendee. I'd like to research the answer and get back to you. I'll do that within 24 hours. Would you like me to call you or text you or email you? right? Have them say when they want to hear from you and what the format is for you to return that information, take their card, and then when you follow through, you become somebody who keeps their promises because you really care about that attendee having a full knowledge base, and that's what they need to see to believe in you. All right, we're just about out of time, but let me just check any burning questions in the group that you want to address before we break up. Okay, well, I'm going to hang around right here on the floor. If you want to chat one-on-one, I'd be happy to do that. In the meantime, I want to say thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your day with me. I appreciate it. Remember, again, you are the most important part of your booth. You will make or break the success of your booth more than anything else. So go forward, use these tips, be friendly, reach out, connect with people, kick ass, and have a great time at the show. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.